top Indian romance books. Almost all the readers in India who love reading romance novels have either read these books or plan to read these books. And in today's video, I'm going to tell you about all of these books. I have 25 plus books from 18 Indian authors that I want to talk about in this video. So let's get started. But before that, if you're new here on this channel, hi there, I'm Manpreet. I make book related videos on this channel. Just make sure you subscribe if you want to catch all of my videos. I upload every Sunday. And now, before we get into it, do note that these are not recommendations. I have been making these videos this year just to inform you guys about the Indian books, and I have not read all of these. I'll tell you which ones I have read while I'm into the video, but do your due diligence before picking these up. These are not recommendations. Alright, we are going to pursue this video a bit differently. I'm going to talk about 18 plus Indian authors and then their books. Number one author is Ravinder Singh. He is the author of 9 plus books, mostly romance novels. His first book is I Too Had a Love Story, which was based on his real life, and this is a very heartbreaking story of him losing his fiancée after falling in love with her, and that is what the book is about. I have read it, but I would not recommend it to anybody who is not a beginner. So beginners only, because this is a very simple raw account and it's definitely heart touching. I have done a full review of the book on the channel in case you want to check it out, but would not recommend it to like the readers who like to read a lot of fancy and very elaborate romance novels. Okay, just a very simple book but extremely heart touching. And then he wrote a sequel to this, Can Love Happen Twice, which is again something I have read when I was a teenager, when I was in college, and I had loved that book even then. So yes, I would definitely recommend these two books. I have read them, and they are really good for beginner readers, teenagers, people in college. If you belong to that set of audience, you are going to like it a lot. Likewise, you can check out more romance novels written by Ravinder Singh. And yes, if you have read any of the books that I've discussed in this video, then just mention that in the comments and what you think about them. Your opinions might be different, but just knowing about it and talking about these books that we happen to love or not love, that really helps the Indian publishing industry and to promote Indian books. So make sure you comment down below in this video and talk to your friends about it. Now let's move on to the second author, Durjoy Datta. Durjoy Datta has written a lot of Indian romance novels. He mostly writes coffee table romance novels, basically young adult novels, and there is a long list of his works that I have discussed in my author spotlight video that I will link down in the description, and all the books are also linked down in the description in case you want to purchase any of these books. My affiliate links are linked down in the description. Okay, now let's talk about his If It's Not Forever, It's Not Love. This book was written in collaboration with another author, Nikita Singh. This is based on the September 2011 bomb blast and such a heart-touching love story. It was one of the first few books that I read of Durjoy Datta, and I loved it so much. I read about 5 plus of his books and I got out of touch with his books. I sort of felt bored because I was reading like back-to-back Durjoy Datta novels and I just got bored. I got reintroduced to his later works from the book The Boy Who Loved. Okay, and it is such an incredible young adult sort of romance novel. The writing is so beautiful and it is so heart touching, a little dark and gloomy as well. But yes, I have done a full review of The Boy Who Loved and the sequel, The Boy with a Broken Heart, on this channel. I will link all of those down below in the description so you can check those out. And another book that I read recently was A Touch of Eternity. This is sort of like a young adult romance novel but with a touch of science fiction into it. So it's a story about these two people who are born at the same time, and they think they're soulmates since then, and it's their love story while their world is going through a major scientific breakthrough. So these are some of the Durjoy Datta books that are my favorite. But then another fan favorite is Wish I Could Tell You, which is all about this concept on whether you can find yourself and find love and just move forward with your life when you have lost that special someone. And then there is also The Girl of My Dreams, which is, I believe, I have read the description of the book and I believe it must be very suspenseful. This book is all about this guy who is in an accident and he has memory lapse. And then he starts remembering this girl who was possibly with him during that accident, and he starts writing about it, blogging about it, and then he writes a book about it. But he changes a few things which makes somebody start stalking him and sort of threatening him for what things he has changed. So again, I told you I got a lot of suspenseful and spooky vibes from this book, but I have not read it yet. But you can definitely check it out, okay? Moving on to the author number 3, Preeti Shenoy. She is one of the highest selling authors in the Indian romance genre, and she has written several books. In this video, I will talk about 2 of her books. If you want to know more about all of her works, you can check out the author spotlight video on the channel that I have done on Preeti Shenoy, okay? So, number 1 book of Preeti Shenoy that I want to talk about is The One You Cannot Have. This is a love story. This is about this guy named Aman who falls in love with Shruti, and then they break up. And it's all about him trying to move on and probably and possibly fall in love with another girl named Anjali. And the second Preeti Shenoy book that is very popular is It's All in the Planets. This is about this guy who meets this girl in a train, and this girl sort of becomes his relationship coach for this new relationship he's trying to build for himself. And yeah, that is pretty much what the book is about. Next author I want to talk about is Ajay K Pandey. His first book came out in 2015. This was inspired from his real life. This is about these two people, Ajay and Bhavna, who are very opposite to one another, and they meet and they fall in love and they get married, and then Bhavna passes away. This is inspired from his real life, and Ajay K Pandey became an instant best-selling author when this book came out. I have still not read it, but I do plan to read it someday. After the success of his first book, Ajay K Pandey continued writing more books while he still maintains his full-time job in Cognizant. And another book I want to talk about is The Girl in the Red Lipstick. This is all about this guy meeting this girl who is a survivor of human trafficking, and sort of meeting her changes his perspective on life, and changes him as a person. And this is basically a story about life, friendship, and all of that stuff. Like I said, I have not read these 2 books, but I definitely want to read these someday. Next is When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon. Sandhya Menon was born in India and she moved to US when she was 16, and she has been living in US since. The book was published in the US and became an instant bestseller, got a lot of press coverage, and also almost all the foreign booktubers were talking about this book when it came out. So this is about these 2 people, Indian Americans, who are brought together because their parents are sort of arranging a marriage for them, and it is a story of them, basically a contemporary romance. Since then, the author has written a couple of books that I believe are again contemporary romance. I haven't checked them out, but still. Next is a book again by an Indian American author, which is The Bollywood Affair by Sonali Dev. The author was born in India and moved to the US in 2006, and her books often blend the Indian and American culture. This particular book, A Bollywood Affair, is all about this girl who sort of has been married, since she was 4, and her husband doesn't want to recognize that, but she is sort of in love with her husband, who never shows up for her. And because of this, she moves to the US on a scholarship, and there the husband's younger brother shows up trying to get a divorce from her, and this may turn into a different kind of love story, and that is what this book is about. And Sonali Dev has written a lot of books once again that you can check out. Basically, most of them sort of blend Indian American culture. Then there is A Half-Baked Love Story by Anurag and Gunjan Garg. I sort of found this book while looking for Indian romance novels on Amazon. And this is more about this guy who is sort of like a brat, but he may just fall in love at first sight. Basically, his love story. Don't know much about the authors, don't know much about the book, but it just turned up a lot many times while I was researching for this video. So yeah, included it in this one. Next is an author, Sudeep Nagarkar. Now, he is again a very popular author who writes Indian romance novels. I have read one book by him, The Secrets We Keep, and it was bad, bad, bad. I mean, I think I have a reading blog where I documented like reading that book, and I was just like, such a popular author, and this is the product of his writing. Oh my god, I ever since then I have decided I would never pick up a Sudeep Nagarkar book. It was that disappointing, okay? And you can just like watch that video. I will link it down in the description, and even read the comments. It's so disappointing. But there are 2 books that I wanted to mention in this video, because we are not judging here, we're just talking and informing you guys about Indian romance novels. So one is Sorry You Are Not My Type, and this is like there are 3 friends who are very different personalities, and there is this one more friend who comes into this group, and it is basically their story. And the second Sudeep Nagarkar book is Few Things Left Unsaid, which is all about these two people who meet in college, then they break up, and then it is now up to them whether they'll be able to fix this relationship sort of 2 years later after they break up. So that is what the story is about. Again, like I said, I do not want to read any Sudeep Nagarkar books, because what I read, that was not even the debut novel of the author. You can sometimes think that the first few novels of an author might be bad. They may progress into a better author, but what I read in that book, oh my god. Anyway, let's move on to the next author. Chetan Bhagat. Quite a controversial name, because a lot of people love Chetan Bhagat books and a lot of people just despise them. I personally have liked a few Chetan Bhagat books. For example, Two States, which is a story inspired from author's real life, and it is about these two people from different cultures meeting in college, falling in love, and their story up until their marriage, whether it happens or not. Like that. Of course, it happens. I don't think that's a spoiler. But I read this book when I was in college and I really enjoyed it. Another very popular romance novel of Chetan Bhagat is Half Girlfriend, which sort of highlights the issues somebody who has problems with English language. So this is about this guy who speaks Bhojpuri and who is from a small town, and this girl who is, a high society girl who speaks very well English, and this is the love story of this guy. Okay, there's a movie, Half Girlfriend, starring Arjun Kapoor and Shraddha Kapoor, that you can check out as well. I have not read Half Girlfriend. Okay, I read half of Half Girlfriend, did not like it, and then stopped reading it. But I have enjoyed a few books of Chetan Bhagat, and at the same time, I have not enjoyed quite a lot of books of Chetan Bhagat. For example, right now he's writing contemporary thrillers. Okay, he's shifted from contemporary romance genre to contemporary thriller. Not going good with it according to me, but that's my opinion. But yes, these are two romance novels of Chetan Bhagat that you can check out. Next is The Wedding Tamasha by Sudha Nair. This is again an author who is very popular for her contemporary romance novels. This particular one is about this girl who has an abusive husband, and she is in the US right now. And now she comes back to India to attend her brother's marriage, and there is the brother's best friend who happened to have a big crush on this girl. And what happens next, and she might just fall in love with this guy, or something might happen. There might be a lot of tension, family drama over here, because her family does not yet know that she is no longer living with her husband and how abusive he is. So that's what the story is about. Next is the author Nikita Singh, who has co-authored several books with Durjoy Datta, who I have read a lot. I have not read like a specifically Nikita Singh book. I have read a few Durjoy Datta books that were also co-authored by Nikita Singh. Nikita Singh was also accused of plagiarism by one author, and last time I checked, she had moved to some other country for pursuing higher studies. And Love at Facebook is one of her more popular works. This is really a love story based around the age of Facebook, and this was written a lot of time ago. So now social media is like a very normal part of our lives. This was back in 2011, I guess, somewhat around that time, and this is a story about that. And then there is Someone Like You, that is a story that she co-authored with Durjoy Datta, follows 5 people, basically a contemporary romance novel. Next author is Savi Sharma. She self-published her first book, Everyone Has a Story, and became such a phenomena. Westland published her next books, and Westland sort of bought the rights for her first book, and it became a huge thing, a huge case study on how self-publishing authors can grow. I read Everyone Has a Story. I also have read This Is Not Your Story. Both of the books are contemporary romance, but I did not like either of these two. I have done full review of these books on the channel in case you want to check out, but I felt those were like very disappointing reads for me. Especially Everyone Has a Story. When I read it, I just could not like bear the whole book because of certain reasons which I have discussed in my review video. There's also the third book of Savi Sharma, which is Stories We Never Tell. It follows these two people, Janvi, who is a budding social media influencer, and a guy who sort of had a rocky start in life but is very determined to fulfill his dreams. And it's a story about what happens when these two people meet. Mostly Savi Sharma work is more like putting in a lot of quotes together and making a story which is like even like barely 20% believable. That is my experience from the first two books. But yeah, you can check them out. They are very easy to read, and a lot of people still love these books. So that's why they are in this list. Note that I haven't told a lot about Everyone Has a Story and This Is Not Your Story. Like, what exactly is the story? Which I think I have said in one of my reviews that they do not have any story. But in case you want to know more about them, you can check out the review videos, okay? And now let's talk about the next author. Anuja Chauhan, who is one of my favorite Indian authors. She writes contemporary fiction with a lot of romance in it, and they are just so funny. Two romance-heavy books of Anuja Chauhan can be Baz and Those Preeti Thakur Girls. Those Preeti Thakur Girls follows one of the five Thakur sisters and this guy Dylan Singh Shekhawat, who might have just ruined his chances with this girl by giving her a scathing review about her presence and about her performance as a newsreader on the national TV. But it is okay. I just cannot even speak properly because this book is so funny, so amazing. I mean, I love it. You must check it out. There's also The House That BJ Built, which is a sequel of this book. That is also super good. That is the first book of Anuja Chauhan that I read actually. But Those Prezi Thakur Girls is like that romance you will really love, and you will laugh a lot while reading this book. And then there is Baz. Baz follows this Air Force pilot who flies a fighter jet. And you know, most of his life is all about the glory and adventure. And he meets this girl who challenges his concept of nationalism, and that is what the story is about. There's a lot of Indian Air Force stuff, fighter jets, Cold War stuff, action, and a bit of romance in this book. Next, I want to talk about two Hindi books. One is Churasi by Satya Vyas. If you are already a viewer on the channel, you know I love this romance novel. Like, one of the best romance novels I have read is a Hindi romance called Churasi. This is set in the time of 1984 riots, and it's a story of Manu and Rishi and their love story, and it is so beautiful. Will give you butterflies in your heart, and you will also feel sad because you know it is based around such a serious topic, and the author's writing is so beautiful. I don't think I have mentioned this about Churasi. I do have a full review on the channel, but you know, he has dealt with this whole concept of the riots against Sikhs very delicately. He has sort of said a lot of things that touch your heart, and you know, he has very respectfully dealt with this whole time in the period of Sikh history, writing a love story about this Sikh girl and this Hindu boy who might have been a part of these riots. That was a hard task, and the way he has just executed it, it's beautiful. You should read it. Then is Gunaho Ka Devta by Dharamveer Bharti, which is sort of like a cult classic, sort of like a love triangle. Sudha, Chandar, Pammi are three main characters in the book, and it's set in the time, it's set in Allahabad during the time of British. And I have listened to half of this book. I've still not completed it, but you can check it out because it's a classic. Next is Here, There and Everywhere by Sudha Murthy. Sudha Murthy is a very popular author who has written a lot of books in different genres and languages. This is sort of like a collection of short stories of her very popular love stories, and she has added a few new stories in this particular book. So yeah, you can check this one out as well. Next is Novoneel Chakraborty, who writes contemporary thriller with romance in it. His Forever series, Stranger series are very popular. But I read Forever series. I hated it so much. Really hated it. I have done a review of the book, I think. Was very disappointing. Then I tried Stranger series. I read the first book and then just gave up on Novoneel Chakraborty books because I felt like most of his works, what I had read, it felt like he had just put together a half-baked story, and a lot of it is erotica. But you know, the whole story seldom made sense, and then the books were split into two or three just to, you know, I feel like just to make more money out of the books, because the story wasn't enough to be even in one book, you know, and he had split it into two and three for two different series. So I did not like his books. since then I decided I would never pick up a Novoneel Chakraborty book again. But a lot of people love his books, so if you want to check those out, you can check those out. Second last author is M.V. Kasi. I do not know much about the author, and the reason why I included this author into this list is because there are some authors who are very popular, okay? They have a lot of press coverage, they have more fame than their book sales. And the reason why I have included this author into this list of Indian romance novels is because ratings are a lot, okay? And this author is supposedly one of the Amazon bestsellers. So I included this author into the list. There's this book Breathless, which is about a girl falling in love with this stranger who has some dark secrets, and he's just a dark person and really doesn't want her in his life. And that is what this book is about. Then is the Singham Bloodline series by the author. The first book is Bound by Revenge, and this is about these two people who sort of like are brought together and get married to kill the animosity that their families have had for a long time, and just to stop the bloodshed. And that is what this book is about, like them getting married and possibly falling in love, or one of them falls in love when they expected never to love one another because they are enemies. I do not know whether these books are available as paperbacks. They are just available as Kindle editions. I will link them down below in the description. And lastly, there is this author Shikha. She has two books that I have read. He Fixed the Match, She Fixed Him, and Logically Stupid, That's Love. I read He Fixed the Match, She Fixed Him. Again, a story about these two people who have like hidden agendas, and the guy sort of like married this girl to teach her a lesson, and it ultimately becomes such a nice romance that literally gives you butterflies. Okay, not literally, but really gives you butterflies in your stomach, okay? And this is a really good book, became my favorite when I read it during my college time. And Logically Stupid, That's Love is the second book by the author, which, I mean, it wasn't as good as She Fixed the Match, He Fixed Him. No, He Fixed the Match, She Fixed Him. But it is also a romance novel that you can check out. Ultimately, these are all the books that I wanted to talk about in this video. My goal for this year is to talk a lot about Indian books, and quite honestly, I cannot read that many books in a year because of my commitments at work and other things I do. I have like 3 YouTube channels. Managing all of them takes a lot of time, especially when you're doing it all by yourself. So I really cannot read all of those books, but my purpose is to inform you about these books so you can do your own research. You can maybe follow other booktubers and just ask more people about these books and make your decision about reading them. Or just sometimes I just pick up a book and without reviews. I always pick up books without reviews, but sometimes you just pick them up and it is a good experience. Sometimes it's a bad experience, but experience in the end, and you can do that as well. So basically what I mean is that videos this year may not be about the books that I have read and I recommend, but they're definitely about Indian books that you must check out. And I really hope you enjoyed watching this video. Hopefully this gave you a lot of ideas, a lot of books to look into. And yes, if there is one book that you want to tell me which is a great Indian romance novel that was not a part of this video, let me know in the comments down below. And if you have watched till the end, comment below with romance, ROMANCE, okay? And yes, thank you so much for watching this video. This is going to be signing off. I'll be back with another video very soon.